Verse 19. The sons of Rachel, Jacob's wife, Joseph and Benjamin. And to Joseph in the land of Egypt were born Manasseh and Ephraim, whom Asenath, the daughter of Potipherah, the priest of On, bore to him. And the sons of Benjamin, Bela, Becher, Ashbel, Gera, Naaman, Rosh, Mupim, Hupim, and Ard. These are the sons of Rachel who were born to Jacob, 14 persons in all. Now, yeah, again, 14 persons, but not all their names are mentioned here, but 2 of them were already, well, actually 3 of them were already there in Egypt, so they're not being counted. Okay, and yeah, so Joseph at that stage, or had only the 2 sons, but maybe Joseph had more. But I mean, again, yeah, we don't really know. Most likely, maybe he only had the 2 sons because of his position, or they were kind of maybe because he was like in a different. Very often, rich people have less kids, and not always, because I know a rich person with lots of kids. But the people always ask him, so you're rich, why do you have so many kids, kind of idea. But more often not, kind of rich people have less kids and the poorer people more. Yeah, I'm not going to get into that now here for what's that reason or whatever, but that's not the point. So Joseph had only the 2. And they both mentioned why, because they both became leaders of clans in amongst the 12. So again, they mentioned the name of the wife. The only mention of the name of a wife of one of the sons. There's mention of the Canaanite woman for Simeon, but now in this case there's exactly who she is, because she's mentioned so many times. Again, because of the role she played as well, and the role Joseph is playing in the story. So his family deserves a bit more attention here than the rest. Another interesting thing just in these verses, Benjamin, he had a lot of kids. Okay, so sometimes people have this idea of Benjamin was this young 15-year-old when he went up to Egypt the first time, kind of idea. So where did all these kids come from, and did he marry that young? Kind of. Oh yeah, sure, they marry young, that kid's young, but no, he was not that old. He was already in his late 20s, maybe, yeah, at least late 20s, and he had quite a number of sons. Now, so he was not a young teenager when he went up there. And so it's really interesting how, when this whole Benjamin thing played out, that's not mentioned. The fact that actually, Jacob had all these grandsons from Benjamin who he could have, but no, he was not. It was just about those 2 boys. That was their sons even wasn't. And actually, never are you going to read about Benjamin's sons, but you're going to read how Jacob treated Joseph's sons, and they became like sons to him, but not Benjamin's sons, which is as well an interesting kind of thing. Okay, so 14 persons in all here, basically no problem, no counting, no daughters mentioned, so this is 14 of them, but the 2 born there counted as well. Verse 23, the sons of Dan, Hushim, the sons of Naphtali, Yashil, Guni, Yesher, and Shilem. These are the sons of Bilhah, whom Laban gave to Rachel his daughter, and these she bore to Jacob, 7 persons in all. Right, so the Jacob's slave girl, Rachel's slave girl, the one who died, Rachel's slave girl, she is as well, 2 boys, but they didn't have a lot of kids either. Okay, we don't know the reasons for this, whatever, but so they were like the smallest group of 7. So if you count Rachel's side, 7 plus 14, 21, and if you count the other side of the 16 and the 33, which makes it 49, then that's a lot more. That was on Leah's side than on Rachel's side. But we've seen all the time how, because Rachel could not, and actually the only person on Rachel's side that brought in a number of kids were Benjamin. Verse 26, all the persons belonging to Jacob who came into Egypt, who were his own descendants, not including Jacob's sons' wives, were 66 persons in all. So the wives were not counted, okay? And it clearly stated the daughters were not counted either, because they would not, if you add them into this equation here, then this equation is going to go bust. So 66 in all. That is the persons who went down to Egypt. So yes, there were the 2 before already who died, and then there's Joseph and his 2 sons were already there as well in Egypt. And so they did not go with ultimately. Verse 27, and the sons of Joseph who were born to in Egypt were 2. All the persons of the house of Jacob who came into Egypt were 70. Okay, so all these people now coming down with them ultimately. So how does this play from 66 to 70? Well, it includes the three wives, kind of the 7 girls, and Leah and Jacob himself. I mean, 4 plus 66 is going to give you 70, and that is ultimately why there's 70 of them that goes down to Egypt, because now they're counted. But and even in this case, because we still don't get the daughters being counted. The daughters are not counted, with the exception of that one girl that's been counted in that number. So she would be part of this number as well. But the rest of them, which they ought to have had, not counted. So a group of 7, ultimately a whole family, kind of a group of 70 people go down. And when they leave, and if you remember, Sarah, no kids. Abram, all these offspring, none. And now there's 70, which is still not a lot. And no land. They're not in Canaan anymore. They're in Egypt. And they're not going to go to Egypt, to Canaan again. I mean, at least not for the next couple of 100 years, 200 years approximately. And only then will they return. But the numbers in the land kind of doesn't add up yet. But now they are on their way back. And now they are like 1 million odd people. I don't know, some people come up with bigger numbers than that, 2 million more, if you count the numbers there in numbers. And so yes, they grow, and they're growing on their way back to the promised land. So in that case as well, the people could look at the fact that from the 70 came this massive humans within a 200-year period. Okay, it is possible. And just look at the number of how 80, 90 years ago, how many people were on this planet and how many there are now. Okay, it's like like this. So it is possible. If those who say it's not possible, it is possible, 200 years. So they can look at that and they can see, yes, it's fulfilled. So what is left in that promise still? And that is a land. So they're going to the land. So since God fulfilled this, God is going to fulfill that. Again, that gave them no excuse to be afraid and to go into the land, which they were. And which then the punishment was to stay in the desert for another 38 years. So that whole thing plays in that, no excuse. Like the brothers had no excuse to sell Joseph into slavery, they had no excuse to, because they could look at all of this. Okay, they could. And they still didn't trust God. Okay, this is why this history is being told, so that they could understand that they don't need to fear to go into the promised land, into the land of Canaan. Why knowing history is so important, and they still didn't catch on to this. Okay, it's like, yeah.